homes. There will be a roundtable discussion about the response. We understand Mayor Karen Bass has been invited to that, as well as several members of Congress that represent that area, including several Democrats. One of them is Congressman Brad Sherman. He represents the 32nd District of California, which includes Sherman Oaks across the hills into parts of Malibu, Bel Air, and the Palisades. Congressman, thanks for taking the time. Listen, we know what you think about tying federal aid in a disaster to completely unrelated matters, such as voter ID. I got that. Unprecedented. Never happened before. But when you talk to the president today, what argument will you make to him to abandon that avenue and to make sure this federal aid makes its way to California?
Well, one argument will make sense, especially to my colleagues, and that is I voted for aid for Louisiana, for Florida. And it never occurred to me to say, God, I hate the fact that they will not give a woman the right to choose. And I think that's a deprivation of the rights of millions of American women. So I'm not going to vote for aid for Louisiana. It never occurred to me. And I don't think my colleagues will want to see that again, because they know that they're going to be serving through Democratic and Republican majorities, and they don't want aid to their states interrupted when Democrats are in control, telling them to change their abortion laws. The second point I've got to make to the president is, why are you punishing individual homeowners who have lost everything? They didn't write laws in Sacramento about the Delta smelt. Do we really want to say that we won't help people who are devastated because they live in a state where we don't like some of the laws?
Right. To that point, and you mentioned some of your colleagues, it's one thing hearing it from Democrats. What about the Republican congressional delegation from California? Have any of them stepped up?
Well, several have said that this aid should not be conditional. Several Republicans from other states have said that as well. Not enough. And it's not unusual to have disaster aid grouped with other things, such as a bill to keep the government open, that everybody's going to vote for anyway. It is, but the idea of destroying federalism in the country and saying, well, your state has sovereignty over certain issues, but not if there's a disaster, I think the founding fathers would be outraged.
Other than that, when it comes to federal aid, we saw that the governor signed a $2.5 billion allocation out of the California legislature yesterday. I think there's some hope for reimbursement from that. What specifically do you need from FEMA and Uncle Sam when it comes to getting rid of not just the toxicity in the burn area, but just scraping those lots so some kind of recovery can take place?
President Biden, on his way out, provided for very substantial relief for government entities to rebuild the schools that were lost, to pay for the firefighting, and government typically does much of the debris removal. What is inadequate about federal law, what the aid we need, is to allow homeowners to rebuild and to help some businesses that were impacted. There was nothing that Biden could do to help individual homeowners since the statute has to be passed by Congress. I will say present statute does provide $43,000 for an uninsured person to rebuild their home. That's you can't rebuild a home for $43,000.
Right. And I'll wrap this up in a second, but you're a federal office holder. The permit process, the rebuilding, that is a local issue. What weight do you have and the congressional delegation out of California and Southern California to get entities such as the City of Los Angeles, the County of Los Angeles, to fast track the permit process? Keep in mind, it has been years since there was the mudslides that killed people and destroyed property in Montecito in Santa Barbara County. 6, 7 years, there are still people trying to rebuild there. The argument is this is going to take 20, 30 years.
Government is slow, and it shouldn't be. Aid to people in Hawaii to help them rebuild is just arriving now, 2 years after the Lahaina fire. we've got to fast track all the rebuilding. And at the same time, we have to rebuild better. Under existing state law, when you rebuild, you have to meet the 2008 standard for building in a fire-prone area. And we know that that will help make sure that there isn't a repeat fire disaster in the Palisades. We saw the effectiveness of this new fire code for the newer homes in Paradise, where most of the homes were older and were not subject to it. So we need to rebuild back. We need to build back better, and we need to allow people to build back quickly.
The Honorable Brad Sherman, member of Congress from the 32nd District, will be meeting with President Trump today. Congressman, thanks for taking the time, and we'd like to talk to you afterwards, see what happens.
We'll be having a press conference right after the president leaves.
Thank you, Congressman.